For those of you that don't know my story or who I am, I'm going to share it with you today and hope that you gain some insight, wisdom, and inspiration from it. I grew up in a small farm town in upstate New York. I started out making my money working on farms, throwing hay, and pounding nails working construction with my father. I grew up in a very rough and tough and unsafe environment. And as a young boy, I had so much energy. And I found myself constantly breaking things. And my mother was always threatening to send me away to military school, a place for misbehaved boys, which was exactly what I was. Now, because of my obsessive nature, when I discovered sugar, I became instantly addicted. And my mother would actually have to hide all of the sugary snacks in the house, or else I would eat everything. At one point, I literally was eating jars of frosting. It's absolutely disgusting to think about that now. My relationship with my father was very uneasy and very unsafe. I was never good enough for him, and maybe you can relate to that too. In my dad's eyes, I could always be better. And I remember he would always say to me, "Jake, you can always do better. You can always have better. There's always someone better out there." And I felt like I was never good enough. Now, he was also very emotionally and physically abusive towards me. He slept with a 12-gauge shotgun loaded behind his bedroom door. And when he'd be in there sleeping, taking a nap, I'd be out in the living room playing. And if I was too loud, he would come running out with that gun in his hand, waving it in my face, threatening to shoot me. Now, you can imagine what that does to a young boy growing up in this environment, constantly feeling unsafe. I immediately started stuffing all of this pain and emotion down because he told me, and the most of our society told me, that showing emotion, crying, expressing yourself is weakness. And that when you show vulnerability, it leaves you out there kind of. And the relationship that I had with my sister, Jocelyn, my older sister, she was my best friend. She was my hero. And I really admired her and looked up to her. Now, Jocelyn was very adventurous. She was the problem solver, and she was fearless. She was smart. She was well-spoken. She was very popular, and a lot of people loved Jocelyn. And I couldn't get enough of my sister. And when I was a young boy, I thought she was really cool, but she also had really attractive friends. So I was always wanting to be around Jocelyn. And when I was 13 years old, it was the middle of summertime, and Jocelyn was in the bathroom taking a shower. And I was going to pull a prank on Jocelyn. I thought I was going to be funny. And I had this bucket of ice water. I'm like, I'm going to dump it on her while she's in the shower. And I could hear the shower running. And I'm trying to pick the lock on the door. And I couldn't get in. Finally, I said, screw it. And I kicked the door open. And when I kicked the door open, what I saw before me was my older sister, Jocelyn, laying on the floor with a needle hanging out of her right arm. Jocelyn at that point had legally overdosed on heroin. We got her to the hospital. We got her revitalized. And from that point forward to this day, she went down a very dark path of heroin addiction. About a year later, Jocelyn and I had gotten into an argument in the kitchen. And this wasn't your typical brother-sister fight where, haha, you're stupid sort of thing. Jocelyn pulled out a butcher's knife and she threatened to stab me with it. So what did I do? I ran in the bedroom and I locked the door. And I laid on the floor and I started to cry. And it was that deep cry, this angry, sad, really hurt cry. And I'm punching the ground. I'm so angry. And I'm screaming, why me? Why me? Why does this have to happen to me? All the abuse, all the trauma, everything just running through my mind. And I laid there for about 20 minutes. And I looked up, and in the corner of my room, I had this shotgun that my parents had got me for Christmas. But I was actually keeping it there at the time for protection against drug dealers from showing up at the house in the middle of the night. So I thought to myself, what would it be like if I just took my life now? What would it be like if I just ended all this pain and this suffering now? And as soon as I had that thought, I heard this voice come into my ear. And it said, "You're not permitted to leave yet because you have great work here to do." And that planted the seed in my mind because I stopped thinking so much just about myself. And I started thinking about other people on this earth. And I've always had this deep desire to serve, to help people heal, to help people live better lives, more fulfilling lives. But I knew that I couldn't do that until I worked through my own stuff. So fast forward 8 years of anger, of abuse, of alcoholism, and all these different things going throughout my mind and going throughout my life. I got to the point in my life where I got to this realization of I can continue to be a victim of my life, or I can begin to take responsibility. And I chose to take responsibility for my life. I chose to start working on myself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I lost over 80 pounds. I let go of alcoholism and porn addiction. I healed the relationship with my father from the abuse from him. I let go of the attachment to my sister and her drug addiction. And I started healing all of these things that I had gone through. And I actually started seeing all of these things as lessons. I realized that I'm in Earth School here and I'm just working through my curriculum. And the pain that I'm working through is the curriculum. So instead of me pushing away the pain, I started to embrace it. I started to learn how to love myself and accept myself. I started learning about who I am at a soul level and not what everyone else wanted me to be. And I think that was one of the biggest realizations I had, was learning about who I am. Because when you don't know who you are, it's easy for other people to tell you who to be. The reasons why we go through things in life is so we can further ascend in consciousness. Because the pain allows us to awaken. The pain allows us to transform. But what happens with a lot of people is we get caught in this victim role of life and we keep things happening to us. But it's not how it is, because the universe is sending us things to help us remember who we are, so we can awaken, so we can transform and transmute these energies. So I'm curious to know, what's your story? Have you shared your vulnerability, or are you still holding on to these wounds that don't serve you?